The second phase is far more subtle than disappointment. It arrives dressed in gentle questions, wrapped in worry, and disguised as love. Where were you? Who did you go with? Why didn't you answer right away? Individually, they sound harmless, even caring. But over time, these check-ins morph into surveillance, not on your phone, on you. She'll tell you she's just curious, that she wants to be part of your day, that she cares about your safety. But watch closely. It's not about involvement. It's about control. The tone is never neutral. It's investigative, like she's collecting evidence. Even worse, the more transparent you become, the less she respects you. Why? Because deep down, she doesn't want a man she can control. She wants a man she chooses to follow. But she can't help herself. Pushing boundaries becomes instinctual. Every time you comply, she learns she can push a little further. Soon, you start making decisions preemptively to avoid interrogation. You don't grab coffee with an old friend because explaining it will be draining. You avoid sitting in your car to decompress because she'll wonder why you're taking so long. You skip the gym because she'll assume you're trying to impress someone. Your world shrinks. Your joy shrinks. You shrink. And here's the harsh reality nobody teaches men. The more you accommodate, the less attractive you become. A man who sacrifices his autonomy to keep peace becomes a shadow, predictable, exhausted, hollow. Then comes conflict. Suddenly, every conversation feels like stepping into a minefield. It's never about the socks, the dishes, or the tone. It's about leverage, power, pulling you into emotional quicksand. When you raise your voice, she becomes the victim. When you walk away, you're detached. When you try to solve the problem, she moves the goalposts. You're not resolving anything. You're bleeding energy. She doesn't want resolution. She wants engagement. Conflict becomes the only currency she knows how to receive. And the cost is always paid by you. By the end of each argument, you're drained, apologizing, promising to do better, without even remembering what you supposedly did wrong. Meanwhile, her validation is fed, because conflict gives her attention, the only kind she knows how to receive. And slowly, you begin to live in anticipation, waiting for the next emotional landmine to explode under your feet. By the time you make it this far, the emotional erosion has already begun. But the bedroom, the place that should feel safe, connected, alive, becomes the next arena. At first, you try to initiate, hoping physical closeness can repair emotional distance. But suddenly, your desire is framed as selfish. That's all you think about. Now you're a walking appetite, a problem she must manage. So you back off. You wait for her cues, hoping she'll meet you halfway. When she doesn't, she turns the silence into suspicion. You're not attracted to me anymore. There must be someone else. Your restraint, the very thing she demanded, is twisted into betrayal. You can't win. When intimacy finally happens, it isn't connection, it's evaluation. Your performance becomes another metric in the endless scoreboard she keeps in her head. Too slow, too fast, too boring, too eager, too rough, too gentle. And after it's over, you lie there feeling graded, not loved. Every interaction becomes a test, and somehow you keep failing exams you never studied for. Meanwhile, she weaponizes emotion like a surgeon with a scalpel. Her stress means the household holds its breath. Her frustration becomes a weather system everyone must navigate. But when you're exhausted, when you've had a brutal day, suddenly you're told to toughen up and not drag negativity home. Her feelings are sacred, yours are negotiable. Then come the contradictions. She'll beg for vulnerability until you show it. Speak honestly about fears, doubts, dreams. Suddenly, she sees weakness, and attraction drops. So you build walls and handle your battles quietly. Now, she calls you distant, cold, unreachable. Two opposite instructions, both punishable. That's the trap. And just when you begin to question reality, she'll sprinkle affection, small moments of sweetness, a warm tone, a soft touch, a compliment. They arrive without warning, just enough to reset your hope. That's not accident. That's intermittent reinforcement, the same psychology casinos use to keep gamblers feeding the machine. Every time you think you finally earned peace, the ground shifts again. You're always adjusting, working, appeasing, apologizing. Meanwhile, the goalposts drift farther and farther into the distance. And here's the darkest part. Eventually, you start accepting the narrative that you're failing. You forget the man you were, confident, playful, spontaneous. You become a quiet version of yourself, designed for her comfort. You're no longer living. You're managing. Eventually, the erosion isn't loud. It's quiet. It happens in small decisions, silent hesitations, subtle compromises you barely notice. You start checking her mood before you speak. You edit your tone mid-sentence. You walk on emotional eggshells, rehearsing conversations in your head before they ever happen. You stop laughing the way you used to. You stop posting what you enjoy. You even pause before buying a cheap coffee, not because you can't afford it, but because you're afraid of the reaction. That isn't partnership. That's conditioning. Over time, your world becomes tiny. Friends are bad influences. Family is too involved. Hobbies are a waste of time. Bit by bit, your support network is dismantled until she's the only mirror reflecting who you are. And that mirror is distorted. She'll rewrite the past to suit her narrative. Every mistake becomes a landmark argument. Every emotional reaction becomes proof you're unstable. Meanwhile, her betrayals? Those are framed as responses to your shortcomings. You become the villain in stories you barely remember. Then comes the most insidious stage: self-doubt. You begin accepting her version of you. Maybe you really are the problem. Maybe you're lucky she hasn't traded you in. Maybe you should try harder. And with each maybe, your identity fades. Your role becomes predictable. Provider, fixer, emotional sponge, silent mule. Your sense of worth gets tied to her temporary satisfaction, which evaporates faster than you can refill it. Even your happiness becomes suspicious. If you're relaxed, she'll find something you should worry about. If you're smiling, she'll demand to know why. Peace becomes a guilty pleasure you can only experience alone. And that's the signal. When your happiest moments are the ones she's not in, you're no longer in love. You're surviving. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one tells men. A woman who truly loves you doesn't shrink you. She adds to your world. She respects your boundaries. She celebrates your wins without calculating how they affect her convenience. She supports growth, not control. And if the only way to keep the relationship is by becoming less, then you're trading your life for someone else's comfort. Read that again. You have one shot at this existence, one spine, one identity, one chance to be the man you were meant to be, not the man you were cornered into becoming. Changing this dynamic won't make you the villain. It will expose the truth. When a man finally reaches the point where he can see the pattern clearly, it's rarely dramatic. It's not a movie moment. It's quiet. It's that subtle realization that you haven't felt like yourself in a long time. Your confidence? Gone. Your laughter? Rare. Even your thoughts feel edited before they leave your mouth. That's when something inside shifts. The truth is, you can't fix this by trying harder. You've already tried harder. You've contorted yourself into every shape imaginable just to keep the peace, and nothing changed. The reason is simple. A relationship built on control cannot be soothed with compliance. Compliance feeds it. So the first step isn't leaving, it's stopping the role you've been assigned. You say no without writing an essay afterward. You have an opinion without cross-examining yourself. You take an hour alone without apologizing. These aren't acts of rebellion, they're acts of identity. Her reaction will tell you everything. Some partners will panic, escalate, guilt trip. Why? Because they're not afraid of losing you, they're afraid of losing control. They'll call you selfish, distant, ungrateful. Remember this. When you stop being useful to someone's dysfunction, they'll label your boundaries as betrayal. But healthy partners adapt. They recalibrate. They grow. They want the version of you that's alive, not the one performing emotional CPR on them. The second step is rebuilding space. Reconnect with the people who make you laugh without tension. Revisit hobbies you shelved. Find silence where no one is monitoring your breathing. It feels awkward at first, like you're cheating on a contract you didn't sign. That's conditioning talking. Then comes the hardest part. You must accept being misunderstood. People who benefited from your exhaustion will claim you've changed for the worse. They'll act confused, hurt, blindsided. Don't mistake discomfort for evidence that you're wrong. Growth always disturbs the environment that kept you small. Slowly, something returns. Energy, humor, presence. You start hearing your own voice in your head again. You realize that the peace you've been fantasizing about isn't in her approval, it's in your autonomy. And if she can't coexist with a whole man, if she requires your malfunction to feel secure, then you're not losing love by walking away, you're releasing dependency. There are billions of humans on this planet. You don't owe your entire life to the one who taught you to shrink. The version of you that you abandoned is still waiting. He's tired, but he's real, and he deserves to breathe again. Silence can feel louder than any argument. Most people imagine relationships falling apart through shouting, slammed doors, and dramatic scenes. But in reality, endings often arrive quietly. They show up through small shifts, faded reactions, delayed replies, eyes that no longer hold curiosity, and a tone that slowly becomes careful instead of excited. When emotional distance enters, it doesn't knock. It slips in, unnoticed. At first, you feel something strange, something unexplainable. You ask simple questions, but the answers become short, safe, and hollow. You stand face to face, but you swear there's a wall somewhere between you. You start recognizing silence not as peace, but as avoidance. And this is the moment where most people make their biggest mistake. They chase harder, they argue more, they beg for clarity. But every desperate move only tightens the rope around their own neck, because someone who is emotionally checked out no longer worries about the truth hurting you. Their heart has already traveled somewhere you can't follow. So you try to fix it. You replay memories, hoping to remind them of good times. You try to become lighter, funnier, more understanding. But their eyes stop reacting. Compliments don't land. Jokes don't register. Apologies don't soften. You begin to feel invisible in front of someone who used to feel like home. And here's the harsh part. Emotional withdrawal is silent betrayal. It doesn't explode, it dissolves. Day by day,
layer by layer, until connection isn't broken, it's erased. You stop asking deep questions because the answers hurt more than the curiosity. You stop sharing achievements because the reaction feels forced. You stop offering affection because the coldness feels like rejection without words. Eventually, you stop showing up emotionally, not out of anger, but for survival. And this is where the secret truth hides. People rarely leave when they're unhappy. They leave when they feel unseen. The moment your emotions become too much, your dreams become irrelevant, and your voice becomes noise, that's when the crack forms, not outside the relationship, inside your chest. So what do? Not chase, not beg, not shrink. You observe. If someone's silence grows louder than their love, you match the volume. Not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Because attention shouldn't have to be hunted. Effort shouldn't require begging. Affection shouldn't feel borrowed. If they wanted to stay, silence